Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Denver Water Lead Reduction Program virtual community meeting. Before we jump in and get started, I do want to quickly invite our interpreter, Nicholas, on the line to invite any of our Spanish-speaking participants over to the Spanish event. Nicholas?
Buenas tardes con todos y todas. Por favor, si es que tienen necesidad de escuchar esta reunión en español, por favor opriman asterisco 0 para ser transferidos a la sala de español. Gracias.
Thanks, Nicholas. So hi again, my name is Rachel DeFebo. I'll be facilitating the event tonight. If you got a phone call or an email inviting you to this event, it is because you are at a home or in an area that has been identified for upcoming lead service line replacement as part of the lead reduction program. So we're glad to have you here tonight. We want to take this as a chance to really give you some more details on what to expect before, during, and after construction, and hear from you too, give you a chance to ask some of your questions and hear directly from us. I know we have a lot of people joining over the phone. If you would like to join online, you can go to denverwater.org/lead, and you'll see a blue banner at the top of that page with a link to join the meeting live if you'd like to do that online, but you can fully participate either way. And so we're looking forward to just hopping into everything tonight. So with that, I'll move us to our agenda. We will start with just a high-level overview of the full lead reduction program, the various elements of the program, and then we'll dive more into the specifics about lead service line replacement. We'll have plenty of opportunity for questions throughout. We do want to hear from you. We'll also have a couple poll questions that we'll talk a little bit about. I already see some questions coming in, but just as a reminder, if you do have a question at any point, if you are on the phone, you can press *3, and that will get you in the question queue. You'll still be able to listen into the meeting. And then if you're online, you can put your question in the online chat box. We'll go for just a few meeting guidelines to make sure we get through everything smoothly tonight. The first, just respect everybody else on the call. We are hoping that we have a range of perspectives and questions from folks, so that'll help keep us moving. And then again, we are here tonight to focus on lead service line replacement. If you have questions or want to go into more detail about things like water filters or water testing, more background on the lead reduction program, we have a lot of information at denverwater.org/lead. We've done other meetings like this on those topics, and recordings of those are on that website at denverwater.org/lead. And again, we'll have a few polls tonight. We really encourage you to participate in those, again, if you're on the phone or online. That helps us just to hear from you and does help us improve and move forward as we think about potential updates to the program. And one more reminder, if you're on the phone, you can press *3 to ask a question. If you're online, you can put it in the chat box. And then I'll go ahead and introduce a couple more folks who are on the line with me. It's not going to be just me talking tonight. I've also got Pam Williams and Sarah Bahunik, members of the Denver Water team. They'll be presenting a lot of information tonight and are here to answer all of your questions. So we're lucky to have them here with us. I think with that, we can move ahead into our first poll question for the night, so we can, I think, advance the slide there. And again, if you're on the phone, I want you to participate in this as well, but just want to get a sense of who we have joining us tonight, where you all are coming from. So our question for you is, which response best describes you? 1, I own my home. 2, I rent my home. Or 3, I own my home and additional properties that I rent out. So again, wanting to know which response best describes you. You can press 1 for I own my home, press 2 for I rent my home, or press 3 for I own my home and additional properties that I rent out. And so I see some responses coming in. I'll just read that one more time. Which response best describes you? Press 1 for I own my home, 2, I rent, or 3, I own my home and other properties that I rent out. And so what I can see here is that the vast majority of the people we have with us are homeowners. Most of you responded that you own your home, but we do also have some renters on the line and a good section of you all who both own and rent out properties. And that's great for us to know. And we will say that the information we go over tonight will apply to all of those categories of people. So there will be information we've got tonight that will apply if you're a homeowner or a renter. All right, so with that, we'll move on to giving a little bit of an overview of the full lead reduction program. We've got a little video to share that just gives a good overview of the different elements of the program, including a few pieces on service line replacement. If you are joining on the phone, fear not, the video has some good narration to it, so you should be able to follow along just fine. And with that, let's go ahead and play the video.
Taking action to help protect current and future generations from lead in drinking water. It's why Denver Water launched its new lead reduction program in 2020. While the water sent to customers is lead-free, lead can get into water if it passes through service lines that are made of lead. This is important because lead in water can have significant health impacts, especially for pregnant women, infants, and young children. Service lines are the pipes that connect Denver Water's water mains in the street to homes and businesses. Customers own the service lines. Denver Water owns the water mains. As part of the lead reduction program, Denver Water has an estimated 64,000 to 84,000 properties in its service area that have lead service lines. The utility plans to replace these lines with new, lead-free copper pipes at no direct cost to the customer. Most of the properties are homes built before 1951. Pipe replacement will take place on a neighborhood-by-neighborhood basis starting in 2020. It will take 15 years to replace all the lines. Priority will be given to areas with a large number of facilities that serve infants and children, areas with high concentrations of lead service lines, and underserved neighborhoods. Reducing the risk of lead in water at home is another important part of the lead reduction program. That's why Denver Water is sending customers a free pitcher and water filters. The filters are certified to remove lead and should be used for drinking, cooking, and making infant formula or other beverages. While the primary source of lead in drinking water comes from lead service lines in the ground, lead can also get into water through household plumbing that contains lead. This includes faucets and fittings made before 2014, as well as solder that was used to connect copper pipes before 1987. To help protect all customers from these sources of lead in drinking water, Denver Water is increasing the pH level of the water it delivers to its service area. This higher pH will strengthen an existing protective coating inside pipes and plumbing, which reduces the likelihood of lead getting into water. This change will not impact the taste and odor of the water. This comprehensive program was approved by the Environmental Protection Agency as well as the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. You can learn more about the lead reduction program at denverwater.org/lead or call 303-893-2444.
Great, so we hope that video gave a good overview of the full program. We do want to go ahead and take some questions from people. Some of the most common questions that we do get specific about service line replacement are things like, when will I hear about scheduling? I think I already see a couple questions in the queue about that. What are the possible impacts to my landscaping, my yard? And then what do I need to do? Ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you need from me? We are going to go into detail about all of those throughout the meeting tonight and have some more specific question and answer sessions with those. But I do want to take just a few minutes and see if we have any questions that might be bigger picture or about the overall program. And I think Pam and Sarah are going to help me with some of these. So the first question I'm going to bring to you, Sarah. We've got a couple questions, and from online. I know one at least is from Vincent, giving a specific street address and really asking, how do I know if I have a lead service line? So how do I know if I'm in this program? Wondering if you can just talk a little bit about that, how people can find out if they have a lead service line.
Thank you for that question, Vincent. So we would recommend that you go to denverwater.org/lead. And right there, there is a map and a box that says, do I have a lead service line? Click on that and you can enter your specific address and it will tell you the status. So it can be either confirmed lead service line, which means that you are in the lead reduction program. It could be likely to have a lead service line, which also means that you're still in the program, or it could also show that you are unlikely to have a lead service line or do not have a lead service line.
Great, thanks, Sarah. This next question, I'm going to come to you, Pam. We've got a number of people asking that same common question we mentioned before about when will I know when work is starting at my house? And I know we'll go into more detail on that later, but wondering if you can just give a quick snapshot of how people will be notified when work is coming to them.
Sure. Thank you, Rachel. And thank you all for this question. It tells me that you're really excited about getting your lines replaced, which we're happy about. So I think as many of you have seen, you've received a packet of information that says, please sign this if you're the homeowner so we can do the work. So if you've done that, we send that quite a bit in advance, at least a month or so. And our contractors are gathering all those yeses so they can start to mobilize in the area when the time comes. So just this week, we've started in a few neighborhoods. I believe Park Hill is one and West Highland. And I don't have the schedule completely memorized in front of me, but we started in a couple of those neighborhoods this week. And there's some neighborhoods that we have, like I mentioned, already mailed to. And if you have said yes and you're waiting on what happens next, what will happen next is the contractors and the scheduling team will reach out to schedule an in-home consultation, is what we call it. So they can walk through with you what to expect on that replacement day, where they'll be digging, where that line comes into your home. And then at that point, you can get a really good idea of, well, when exactly will this work start and this schedule. And the last piece I'll mention is, as Sarah mentioned, there's a handy map on the website to check if your house is in the program, but there's also the map that outlines the construction that we're doing. And if you go search your address and you're in the lead program in a work area, you'll see that likely you're within a shaded polygon. And when you hover over that polygon, it will give you a general time frame, spring, summer, somewhere in there when we start, because construction can move so quickly, or with the weather slow down, sometimes those exact dates are hard to put in there.
Great, thanks, Pam. And I know, again, we'll be going into more detail on that, and we have some slides and visuals as well that we'll talk a little bit more about a little later in the meeting. Do you want to take one or two more questions? I see there is a question online from Jacqueline that I'm going to give to you, Sarah, asking if this program is federally funded.
Yes, absolutely. So we were successful. Denver Water was successful in being awarded $76 million in federal funding from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Act. And that award came late last year. So it is indeed partially federally funded. And what's great about this funding is that it's helping us accelerate this program. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, but in 2023, we anticipate nearly doubling the amount of lead service lines that we are able to replace. So that means that we are able to get to more people quicker.
Thanks, Sarah. I think we'll take one more question, and we're going to bring someone on who is joining us over the phone. So we're going to look to, looks like Roger may have a question about some water testing. So Roger, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I have been out of town for a period of time, being a bit of a snowbird. I got home just recently, and I found the package, a box in my house, for doing testing of my water. So it's never been done. Do I still need to do that? I was kind of under the understanding when I bought my house that the lead had been replaced. My lead lines, service line had been replaced with copper years ago. So should I still do the test or what?
Perfect. Thanks, Roger. So I'm going to come to you, Pam, for that one. If you can talk about the role of water testing and why someone might see one of those boxes on their front porch.
Sure. Roger, thank you for hanging onto that box and asking about it. Short answer is yes, we would still like you to collect those samples and send them back to us. If anyone else is in a situation similar where they found the box or set it aside and forgot about it, as long as those bottles have not been opened, you can still collect and send back. And the reason being is we are not 100% sure where all lead service lines are. And that's because the service lines are customer owned service lines. So we know the age of a house based on county records and assessor and when we connected the tap to the main. But in your case, Roger, where, at some point in time, it sounds like maybe the line was replaced, Denver Water may not have record of that. So this is really helping and telling us a confirmation of, is there a lead service line there? And also it can help tell the story for not your case, but anyone else on the line doing those kits, the interior plumbing or fixtures in the home, because those could be other sources of lead. So that is good information for folks to know for their own public health and awareness. But for us, we would love folks to collect those samples, send those kits back in, so we really know for sure, and it tells part of the story of, is there a lead service line there or not?
Great, thanks, Pam. I think that's really helpful. And we'll be mentioning a few of these things. We'll be reiterating them throughout the meeting. So this probably isn't the first time you'll hear about some of these pieces of the program. I do want to move us forward so that we can dive into all things service lines and the replacement process. I know a lot of folks aren't necessarily thinking about their service line every day or may not know a lot about that. So I just want to start with you, Sarah, if you can take a step back and just go through what is a service line and some of these big picture pieces related to lead service line replacement.
A lot of you are probably being introduced to new terminology, water mains, water meters, service lines. We know that it can be really confusing at times. The customer-owned lead service line is specifically the pipe that brings water from the Denver Water-owned water main in the street to the plumbing in the home. Replacing these lead service lines is the heart of the lead reduction program, as they are the primary source of lead in drinking water. As you can see, we have an initial estimate of 64,000 to 84,000 properties that may have lead service lines. And this range of numbers is because we don't own the lines. So getting records of what they are made of is harder. So far, we have replaced more than 15,000 lead service lines since the start of the lead reduction program in 2020. There are actually two ways that your lead service line may be replaced by Denver Water. So the first is through the accelerated lead service line replacement, which are made possible through the lead reduction program, or when they're discovered through regular routine maintenance that Denver Water does when working on the water main replacements. So prior to the lead reduction program, Denver Water had been replacing lead service lines for the last few years as they were being discovered just during the course of regular routine maintenance. They were also replaced as the property owners chose to redevelop their properties or replace their old service lines. And we estimate that about 1,200 lead service lines were replaced every year through these efforts. And really that indicated to us that it would take several decades to replace all of the estimated lead service lines in Denver water service area. As I mentioned, the lead reduction program started in 2020, and Denver Water is able to now accelerate the pace of replacing those customer-owned lead service lines at no direct cost to the customer. And rather than taking several decades to complete this effort, the lead reduction program actually is planning to replace these lead service lines in 15 years. And as I mentioned during the Q&A, we were successful in being awarded federal funding at the end of last year. And so now we are able to nearly double the amount of lead service line replacements in 2023, which will further accelerate the rate of the program. Information on where Denver Water will be working in 2023 is displayed on an interactive map that is featured on our website. Customers can enter in their address, and the map will show the work status and name of the contractor doing that work as relevant dates become available. So you can find this map at denverwater.org by searching for pipe replacement or by visiting denverwater.org/pipes directly.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. I think we have time just for another quick Q&A session, and then we're going to dive into the details of what to expect before, during, and after service line replacement. I am going to take at least one question here and send it to you, Pam. We've got several people online asking if they can do the work, their replacement themselves in advance and get some sort of reimbursement. So can you give a quick overview of our reimbursement program?
Sure can. So the short answer to that is yes, you don't have to wait for us. You can definitely replace that line ahead of time, work with contractors, get bids, and figure that out. There is a process for that. So if you go to denverwater.org/lead, or even just denverwater.org, at the top in the search bar, and where I find it myself, if I need to reference it, you type reimbursement, partial reimbursement, you're going to find that page that talks about the lead service line replacement reimbursement. And then it gives you some drop-down FAQs and talks about who qualifies, how much is the reimbursement, which is a one-time payment of $3,800. So that is a partial reimbursement. Likely the entire line will probably cost more than that, but there is a process that's outlined there, talks about how to apply for that, working with the groups within Denver Water that process those, and applying for that and doing that form and that work for the reimbursement before you're replacing the line yourself. So again, if you go to our website, denverwater.org, look for lead service line replacement reimbursement. There's some really great FAQs and steps on exactly how that process works.
Great. Thanks, Pam. I'm going to send another one your way. We've got a question from Andrea online who's saying, as a landlord, how do I know when to test water or sign the consent form? So if you could just give a quick overview of how those notifications go out and when somebody might be seeing something.
Sure. So, when it's someone's turn, as I like to say, the property's turn to have the line replaced, we will mail that consent form and that information to the premise address. So whoever's living there, in this case, it would be your landlord or your renter getting that. And then if you've received that, if we have your contact information as the owner, maybe it's a PO box or you live out of state, we have that information for both a landlord or the premise address and an owner, we're going to send that both places. So if you are someone that rents your home or is a landlord, in this case, you will want to look for that information and then fill out that consent form and send it back if you're wanting us to do the work. And then also the key piece is communicating with your tenants so that they know what to expect. Obviously, the contractors are going to be knocking on their door, coming to their house, coming to the home, doing the work. So you really want to make sure that you're coordinating with your tenant. And then also same for the water quality test kit. So we're going to send that kit, the actual kit itself, directly to the property. But prior to that, we do like to send a notification to, again, both the address we have on file for an owner and then also the tenant to give the heads up to say, there's this box going to be showing up on your doorstep. Here's what it is. Here's what we'd like you to do. And the last piece I'll mention to that is there are not times when we have all the best contact information. So we may just be mailing something to the premise address, but in our communications, we lay out if someone is not the homeowner, we are really encouraging in that paperwork, in those materials that we send to say, please reach out to us as the tenant. Let us know what your owner's contact information is so that we can get them information. We're also encouraging them as the tenant to reach out to you as the owner.
Thanks, Pam. We'll keep moving because I know we want to get into those details that a lot of people have questions about. So I'm going to keep going with you, Pam, for diving into what to expect before service line replacement. So those notifications, the pre-construction visit. I want to remind people, if you do have a question while listening to Pam, you can press *3 if you're on the phone to get into the phone queue to ask your question. You'll still be able to listen into the meeting. And then if you're online, you can put your comment in the comment box. And a quick reminder as well, I see a few questions coming in, kind of property specific questions about some specific addresses. If you have anything that's really detailed about your specific address, probably the best thing is to either look at that online map or you can always contact customer care. You can email them at denverwater.org/lead. There'll be an email, lead@denverwater.org. And then you can also call customer care at 303-893-2444. So with that, I want to turn it back over to you, Pam, to dive into what to expect before service line replacement and all those steps that lead up to the actual replacement.
Sure. And there are a lot of steps. So before we reach out to schedule the replacement at your property, like we've been mentioning, there are likely things we have already asked you to do, or you may start to see field crews mobilize. So we've talked about water quality kits that we'll send ahead of time. That test is free. I don't think we've mentioned that yet. But when you see that kit, it gives directions on how to collect the samples, how to return it. It will have a return sticker in there. And then that's going to tell part of the story, those water test kits and those results. The other part of telling the story and us confirming, is there really lead there, is us conducting, or the crews conducting investigations of the service line outside, which we call potholing, prior to the replacement to confirm if there's lead there. So it's a hole, and you can see in the picture there, it's small dinner plate size. Just dig, look underground, and see what the material type is so that we can confirm, yes, there's lead there, we need to get that out, or no, there's not. Let's keep investigating. So crews are also going to conduct utility markings and may put up no parking signs on the street as part of the work. As you can imagine, and the picture that Sarah showed earlier, the water service line connects out to the main, which is in the street. So in order for our crews and everyone to dig and get to the bottom of underneath the line, we have to have cars move so we can do that. And then if you live in City and County of Denver, or even outside of Denver, there's a lot of construction going on. So likely you've seen on the sidewalk, in the street, fun different colors of paint and spray paint. Those are utility markings, and that's what you may start to see so that we know before digging underground and crews know what's under there, so we're not hitting a internet line or sewer or all the fun things that are underground. And then the other piece that I want to mention here is we'll do an interior investigation to check the material of the line coming into the home. So we've talked about the outside, and then they're going to come inside to look at that as well. And then on the next slide, we'll get more into even more of the details of what happens during that in-home visit and consultation with the contractor. So following investigations, Denver Water will seek to gain your consent, of course, as we've been talking, to replace your service line. And to provide your consent, Denver Water will send that form to review and sign. You can also find it online, denverwater.org/consent, if you're wanting to do that digitally. And without a signed consent form, we cannot replace your lead service line. I know folks ask me a lot, I'm not really ready to sign it. I want to, talk to someone a little more in person. We can have that in-home conversation with you. And crews are going to be out there in the area. They'll come knock on the door. If we don't have a signed consent form, you can reach out to customer care and request that. We just are not going to do the actual construction and replacing that line unless we have that consent form. And then, as I mentioned before, if you're not the homeowner and if you're on this call, you're a renter, please just reach out to customer care with the name and contact information for your landlord or the property owner. And again, that's 303-893-2444 so that we can work with the property owner to get that consent to replace the line. And then after we receive your consent form, the next step is the in-home visit and property walkthrough with the construction crew. So before we dive into details of that, as you can see on the slide, we're talking about safety and security. So I want to provide a few comments about that. We've all heard news stories. We hear it from you lovely folks and our customers who will reach out and notify us about utility impersonation, and recognize that letting a stranger into your home is not an easy thing to do. So you can always feel free to ask additional questions to the crew member that's out there to help verify identity. You want to be mindful of looking for the Denver Water badge, contractor logos, which we have listed up there, and they're on our website. They have business cards they can share with you, and you can actually verify the contractor on that map I was speaking about earlier that shows all of our construction work. And then, as mentioned, before doing the service line replacement, Denver Water or one of the contractors will meet with you for that in-home visit and property inspection. So we will identify where the service line enters the property. Typically, it's in a basement or crawl space. And we'll look for your water meter, which is outside, typically found near the street and the sidewalk. And to replace your service line, we'll need a clear path to both of these locations. Any potential impacts to landscaping or drywall will be discussed at this time. There might be that your service line enters behind the wall. That's where the shutoff valve is. So we may need to cut through the drywall to get access to that. You may need to move boxes out of the way. So those are things that will be discussed during that visit. And once that in-home visit has been completed, we'll work with you then to schedule the replacement, making sure it's a good time for you. When will you be home all day? When is it a good time? So now we can talk about what to expect during the actual replacement. And I believe on that slide, we should be popping up. There it is. A short video that provides a good overview of what to expect during the lead service line replacement process. So the day of construction, and it will provide details such as when to move your car and what are the different techniques that we use to do to replace that line. And like the first video, it has a great narrative for any of you on the phone. And then we have English and Spanish customers joining in and listening to the call. So there is a bit of a lag. The Spanish video is a bit longer. So for those of you on the English line, we'll take a little pause and making sure that everybody's caught up afterwards.
There are 3 important things you'll need to know on the day of your service line replacement. First, your water service will be turned off for up to 8 hours, so please plan accordingly. Second, the property owner or a designee who is 18 or older must be on site the entire time. 3rd, portions of your street will be closed from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m., so you'll need to move your vehicles in the morning to give construction crews room to park. And remember, we may be doing several service line replacements on the same street, so construction equipment could be in your neighborhood for a few weeks. Service line replacement starts by using an excavator to dig a hole in the street. Crews will then use shovels to dig down to reach the water main. This is to locate where the old lead service line connects to the water main. You'll also dig a second hole around the water meter in your yard. This is another access point to reach the service line. Crews will then go inside your house. We'll use a side entrance or back door if possible, and put down a cover to protect the floor. The pull-through technique is a common method to replace a lead service line. This involves disconnecting the old service line from the water main in the street. And then inside your house, crews will detach the service line from where it connects to your home's plumbing. We'll then feed a cable through the old service line and attach it to a coil of new copper pipe. The next step involves using an excavator on the street. The machine pulls the cable and the old lead service line through the ground. The new copper service line gets pulled through with it. Then workers connect the new copper line to the water main. In the directional boring technique, the old lead service line is left in the ground and abandoned. Crews will disconnect it from the water main and your home's plumbing so it can no longer be used. We'll then bring in a boring machine and park it on the edge of the property. Workers use this machine to bore a hole for the new service line. The boring machine drills until it reaches a designated location in the basement or crawl space. Crews attach the new copper service line to the drill and pull it back through the hole. Workers then connect the new line to the water main. We'll check all new connections to make sure they're secure. These techniques avoid having to dig a trench through your yard. However, there are some rare cases when digging a trench is required. The final step of the replacement process involves connecting the new copper service line to your indoor plumbing, and then sending water through the new pipe to your home. If your water meter was located inside your house, it will most likely be moved outside during construction. This will make it easier for us to access in the future.
All right, well, like Pam mentioned, give just a few seconds for our Spanish meeting to catch up, but we'll quickly give a reminder that if you have a question, you can press *3 if you're on the phone, or you can put your question into the online comment box. We'll also just give a quick reminder of a few links we've mentioned. I know there have been a lot, but one that goes to our inventory map, which will show if you potentially have a lead service line or not. You can find that at denverwater.org/lead. If you want to go to that construction map that Pam talked about, you can go to denverwater.org/pipes and put in your address there, and it'll bring up the information that we have about the timeline for your replacement, the contractor who will be working in that area. And again, if you do have any specific concerns about scheduling or haven't heard from anybody and you're concerned, maybe you're worried about not being home and you think someone's coming to do some work at your property, please contact us at lead@denverwater.org, or you can call customer care at 303-893-2444. So a few quick reminders there, and I think we've given some time for our Spanish meeting to catch up. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Pam, to keep talking a little bit about what to expect during that replacement process.
Sure, thank you. We have a few additional tips for you to help the replacement day go smoothly. So completing morning routines, showering, cooking, filling water bottles and pitchers, dishes, laundry, things that maybe you need to do with water in the morning or typically do prior to the water shut off, because the water will be shut off during the day. Won't be the entire day. It's going to be a period of time when the crews will let you know when it's off and back on. And then please try not to plan to use any hot water, ice makers, using your sprinkler system. Right now, obviously, that seems hard to believe. It's been cold out and getting warmer, or water-related appliances during the outage. So you don't want to try to use water during that outage time. And only turn on cold water periodically to check for running water. If you're not sure, is it back on or not yet? The crew should be letting you know that, but just if you need to check periodically, just checking that with the cold water. And we do understand construction work can be disruptive to our busy lives, but it is important that you don't leave the property during construction. We ask that someone at the age of 18 or older is home at the property for the day of construction. We want to let you know what's going on when we're in and out of the home. And when we're done for the day, there's some really important steps that we're about to talk about, so that we can go over that with you. And then we want to address any issues that may arrive during the day. And then, of course, do that final walkthrough. So now we can go over what to expect after the service line replacement. Now, after watching the video describing lead service line replacement, you may be wondering, and I've seen some questions coming through here and there about, how to deal with the hole or two in your front yard, or what's going to happen to my lawn or my sprinkler system. We're going to take care of that. We aim to minimize those impacts. After the pipe replacement is done, we'll pour the dirt back into the hole in your yard and cover up the new water meter that's going to be there. We're going to make sure that it's at an original level surface, press that dirt down, really get it impacted in there. And a landscaping crew is going to come back if needed to do that additional restoration work. It likely won't be the very next day. We're doing a lot of lines, on the block, back to back. So every contractor crew is a little bit different, and Denver Water crew that do the work. But, it could be that they're doing a block at a time. It could be that it's a couple of weeks later, or whatever that timing may be, but we will come back if needed to do that restoration work. And that includes new sod or reseeding the grass that was impacted, putting the rock back that was there, or maybe there's mulch where we had dug up in place. And if the irrigation lines are impacted, those will be repaired. So in the summertime, when the sprinkler systems are on, we're likely asking if you could turn those on briefly so we can double check any of those irrigation lines or heads that may have been impacted. If it's right now and it's wintertime and you won't know until you're turning on those irrigation systems, keeping that contact information for Denver Water or the contractor crew or crew that's doing the work at your property, which you'll have, hanging on to that so you can reach back out and let them know. And the teams are really good about following up, because it is a common thing that can happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it can happen. And again, impacts will be discussed during your in-home visit. So if you have landscaping or plants you want to save or dig up yourself before construction, I know there's some beautiful landscape and flowers and things that people really care about, and we want to make sure to have you save those if you want to and give you that option. So be sure to ask the contractor or the crew there that's going through that in-home visit to help identify those and if they may be impacted. And then, as I mentioned before, impacts to the interior of the home, such as drywall or flooring maybe, that's going to be the responsibility of the homeowner to restore. So we may have to cut a piece of drywall out to get to that pipe, and we're going to be leaving it like that. So they'll be sure to go through that with you, what the size of that may be, where that may be, so that you can know and prepare for, okay, I'm going to have to restore this as a homeowner. How will I do that? And what will I need to do? And for the street, crews will fill in the hole and put down a temporary patch so that the road is safe. And then a paving crew will come back later to do the permanent repair, really depending on the weather. need warmer weather for things like asphalt, or maybe it's a concrete panel that needs to go in. So to ensure the best results for everyone, the timing of the landscape restoration and street repair really depends on the crew's work schedule and the season. So moving into the next slide, we'll talk about the important step of flushing your pipes after replacement. So when we hear flushing, or you start to see information that we're sending and talking about flushing, please flush. That's what we mean. We're not talking about flushing your toilets. We're talking about turning on the faucets, your sink, your bathtub in your home. So during construction, it's possible for lead particles, which really aren't visible to the eye, or other debris to get trapped in the aerator of the faucet. Think about the little screen that comes on your faucet, or other places in the plumbing, which can lead to temporarily higher levels of lead, as well as other plumbing issues. So again, we really want to get the lead out and making sure that folks are safe. And so that's a really important step. And so to flush out all that residual debris and lead particles left behind from construction, we'll look at the next slide we'll go on to the next slide to see exactly what that looks like. So the crews are going to do an exterior flush of your pipes immediately following construction. So if there's an outdoor spigot, they're going to use that, and weather permitting. And then they're going to come in the home, and that's why it's so important to stay home and be there at the end, especially of construction, so we can walk through the home with you and do that interior flush where they will run your faucets for you and showing you how to do that. So in total, that process should take about 30 minutes. So although you've been there all day and you're maybe ready for us to leave and the crews to leave, it is really such an important step, and I probably can't emphasize that enough. Of what that means, and sticking around for that, and having them go through that process with you. And then after that, we actually recommend that for about a month following the replacement, you continue to do a brief flush, maybe 5-10 minutes, when the water hasn't been used for several hours. So maybe first thing when you come home, or first thing in the morning when you wake up, or maybe if you've been gone all day before you start cooking or doing different things, just turning on those faucets and running that through. And then we also recommend that you regularly clean those aerators, those little screens on the faucet underneath, and they can collect debris over time. So regardless of lead service line or not, I know even for myself, every time I say this, I'm thinking I probably really need to do that just in general, because they can get gunked up over time. And I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel for our next poll question.
All right. Yeah. Thanks, Pam. And I know we've got just a few minutes left, so we want to have just a couple more poll questions for you, and then a little more information, and have time for a few more questions at the end. So now that we've heard from Pam about flushing your pipes after construction, our question is, how confident do you feel in your ability to flush your faucets after construction? Press 1 for confident, 2 for somewhat confident, or 3 for not confident. So again, thinking about what Pam mentioned about a month after that replacement, doing that continual flushing, how confident do you feel in your ability to flush your faucets after construction? Press 1 for confident, 2 for somewhat confident, or 3 for not confident. And I see some responses coming in. We'll give folks a chance to answer. And I also see some questions, some more property specific questions. So just a reminder for everybody, if you do have any questions that are very specific to your property or to your schedule for your replacement, please do reach out to us at lead@denverwater.org, or you can call customer care at 303-893-2444. And they'll be happy to dive a little bit more into your specifics about your property. So I see in terms of confidence in flushing after construction, we've got most folks saying about 60-70% saying that they are confident in doing that flushing. About a fifth of folks are saying they're somewhat confident. And then we have just a few folks saying they don't feel entirely confident about that flushing process. So thanks for giving us that feedback. It helps us as we continue to think about communications for the program. I am wanting to keep us moving, so we have a few time for a few more questions. I am going to turn it back over to you, Sarah, to talk about a couple more things to be aware of after the replacement.
Yes, thank you. So to avoid consuming any remaining lead particles, please continue to use the water pitcher and filter provided by Denver Water for 6 months after replacement. You may be wondering why filter for 6 months. Well, lead particles and debris can get trapped in aerators or in the interior plumbing. So by continuing to use the filter, it really provides that added layer of protection. You should also request a water quality test after replacement. Not only does this verify that lead levels have been reduced, but the results can also help to identify any other sources of lead in faucets, which could include fixtures or internal plumbing in your home. You will be getting a letter in the mail following replacement, letting you know how to request a kit. And now I'm going to turn it back over to Rachel for our final poll question.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Again, this is our last question, and then we'll go into some more questions and answers for you. So now that you've heard all this information about before, during, and after construction, we're interested to hear what aspect of lead service line replacement do you still have the most questions about? And there's 5 answer options here. So press 1 for you have the most answers or questions still about pre-construction, the investigations, the consent form, that pre-construction site visit. Press 2 for you've got the most questions about construction day, so the excavation, the actual replacement, reconnecting your plumbing, and then press 3 for restoration, landscape repair, street patching and paving. Press 4 for post-replacement flushing, and press 5 for post-replacement filter use and water testing that Sarah just talked about. So again, having heard all these pieces of the process, what aspect of lead service line replacement do you still have the most questions about? Press 1 for pre-construction, 2 for construction day, 3 for restoration following the replacement, 4 for the post-replacement flushing of your pipes, or 5 for post-replacement filter use and water testing. So we've got kind of varied responses that I see coming in with some more people answering, but it looks like most folks still do have questions about construction day. So the excavation, the actual replacement, reconnecting everything, and then a good size amount of folks have questions about that pre-construction, the investigations, consent form piece. So that is very helpful, again, for us as we continue to think about communications for the program, content for these meetings. Thank you for participating in those poll questions tonight. And I do want to take our last few minutes to fit in some more questions from those of you joining. So I'm going to pull up some of what we've got in the queue here. And I think the first one, I'm going to come to you, Pam. We've got an online question about, do I have to be home for the replacement work? And can I sign the consent form when they physically come to my house?
Yes, and yes. So yes, we need someone to be home. We need you to be home as a homeowner, or someone to be home the day of replacement. So when the scheduling team calls you to set that up, try to maybe keep in mind what is a good day that looks like that you're available to do that. And you can sign that consent form when the crews are out there conducting door knocking, doing those investigations, the potholing that we talked about. You don't have to send it off in the mail as soon as you get it. If you want to take the time to ask those questions and have that interaction with the crew and understand, what exactly is this going to look like for me and my property? You can sign it that day and in person. The crews have tablets that they're able to fill that out, or you can scan a QR code, go on the website and do it.
Great. Thanks, Pam. Sarah, I'll go to you with this next question. We've got one from Josh who's joining online asking if the main lines are being replaced in addition to the service lines. And along with that is the replacement of the service line that we're doing, both main to meter and meter to house.
Yeah, absolutely. So our water mains, the ones that run under the street and that are owned by Denver Water, are not the source of lead. So while we are replacing those as part of our ongoing and routine maintenance, it is not part of the lead reduction program. However, the service line from that water main to the meter, as well as from the meter to the house, they are part of the program. So those customer-owned lines are the source of lead in the drinking water. And as such, both elements do need to be replaced.
Great. Thanks, Sarah. I know we have just a couple more minutes, so we can take, I think, about 2 more questions. I do see we've got some folks waiting on the phone. I think there's a Michael Osborne who has a question about moving boxes inside the home and where that is. Michael, can you hear us?
Yes.
Perfect. Please go ahead and ask your question.
You re-answered my question, but I do have another one if I could squeak it in. How much will the cost of this belong to the homeowner? I understand that there's federal money for it, but will there, other than the replacement of drywall in the home and the flooring and things, but the replacement of the lines, is the homeowner responsible for some of that?
Great. Thanks, Michael. That is such an important question for all of everybody listening. And I think, Pam, you can give a straight, simple answer to that.
Yes, the answer is no. There is no cost for you as the homeowner for us, Denver Water, to come out and do that line from the street and the main to the house. So we will pull the old line out, put the new line in at no cost to you or no cost to the homeowner. And as you mentioned, really that cost impact may be, is there a piece of drywall that you need to put back or different things that may happen there? And sometimes that's the case for people and sometimes that's not the case. So short answer, no cost to do that line.
Thanks, Pam. I think we'll take one more question before we wrap it up. I see on the phone with us, Kate Simmons may have a question about scheduling. Kate, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yes, please go ahead with your question. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, thank you. I was wondering how far in advance I know you had said the packets come out about a month before, and I have received my packet, but I'm wondering how far in advance will we know the day scheduled for the service? And it's kind of for 2 reasons. I don't know if we need to ask off work for us to be home for that if we live alone. And the second reason is I also rent part of my home on Airbnb, and I have some dates that are already booked, and so I would like to notify those individuals in case they need to find a different place to stay.
Sure.
Perfect. Thanks,
So
Pam. I'll turn that to you. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Such a good question. So, it varies a little bit for each crew and construction, contractor, the way they kind of run their scheduling. But, we come out and do those investigations a month before we actually start replacements. So it could be during that time. And then when we start replacements in an area, maybe we're starting at one block and we're working our way through the blocks as we go. So I think as a rule of thumb, I would say it's a good, 2-3 weeks in advance where they're reaching out because they're also trying to plan their schedule ahead of time so they know, how many you have on this block and when are we going to move here. So you will have time. It's definitely not just a few days in advance, so that you have time to, if you have people renting your home or, in your situation with Airbnb, looking at that ahead of time. And the thing I'll say about that is, if the time frame of when you're looking at the schedule and they're calling you and, okay, what about this week or this week? If we need to flex or work with that, they are really good about working with folks, because at the end of the day, we want to get the lead out and we want to get those service lines out. So, if there needs to be a discussion as you're scheduling that, well, what about this week or this day? And does this work? The crews and the contractors are really good about working through that as well. But I would say, as a general rule of thumb, we're not talking days in advance. We're talking a couple weeks or more.
Thanks, Pam, and thanks to those of you who are hanging on the line with us. I am in a second going to turn it over to Sarah just to reiterate some of the key pieces of information that we've shared tonight. And I know there's still some questions coming in, and really want to encourage folks to contact us directly and have a conversation with us about questions you have, whether that's your property, whether that is about lead service line replacement or anything else about the program. So again, you can email us at lead@denverwater.org and call us at 303-893-2444. We do want to hear from you. Make sure we can have one-on-one conversations if you've got some continued questions after this. And then I'll turn it over to Sarah, who's going to go through those key takeaways and then reiterate some of those places you can continue to go for more information.
Thank you. To recap and highlight what we've talked about here today, this evening, and some of the biggest action items as well as next steps, I just want to remind people to please complete the water test kit if you receive it. Also, as the property owner, please sign and return the consent form so we can move forward with the work and replacement. You can access that at denverwater.org/consent, or you can look for that in the mail. If you are a tenant or renter, please reach out to your landlord or the property owner to make sure that they are engaged with us and moving forward with a replacement process. And finally, continue using your filter for added protection. There could be residual lead particles in the plumbing after a replacement. And of course, please use your filter before we're able to get to you for the full replacement. And then we do encourage you to sign up for our email updates. You can do so by visiting denverwater.org/lead. You can also reach out to us via email at lead, LEAD, @denverwater.org, or by phone by calling 303-893-2444 for any additional questions. Also, if you have a neighbor or a friend who doesn't speak English, please encourage them to reach out to us. We do have support and we can provide information about the lead reduction program in other languages. We really are eager to support everyone's participation in the program. And as part of this effort right now, the lead reduction program website is available in both English and Spanish. Finally, I just want to thank you so much for your time this evening, for your great questions. We look forward to working with you to replace your lead service line, and we hope you have a wonderful night.